Candyman, 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 Candyman. Might sound weird to actually utter the words, but this spawned one of the best horror movies of the early 90s. Candyman was a 1992 film directed by Bernard Rose, starring the always powerful Tony Todd. It's a mix of ghost story and slasher and social commentary all mixed into one, and it's amazing. So, without any further ado, let's get to the facts. Fact number 1. Having so many bees on the set led to many production challenges. Bees are a key part of Candyman and a big part of why the movie was called this. Since Tony Todd's character was slathered in honey and killed by bees after being mutilated, they were an essential component to the supernatural angle. Unfortunately, this led to some intense shooting conditions. When Todd had the bees coming out of his mouth, he only had a mouthpiece to protect him from swallowing all these bees. Like, they literally just kind of poured the bees into his mouth. Over the course of filming these 3 movies, he was stung at least 23 times. These bees were also specifically bred for the film. Like, they were only 12 hours old so that they would have underdeveloped stingers but still look like mature bees. They had to have a pretty clear window of what they were trying to do for these couple of scenes. To make matters worse, lead actress Virginia Madsen was actually allergic to bees, so they always had to have an ambulance on the set to make sure that if the worst were to happen, she could get out of there quickly. Fact number 2. Filming in the Cabrini Green section of Chicago was dangerous. Often while filming, the crew are given shirts that say the name of the movie, then shot in California. For the production of this one, they actually had shirts that said Candyman, shot at in Chicago. Tony Todd had commented on this about how even though he's a giant, like at 6'5", he's an imposing figure, there were times where he still felt fear. He still remembers even the address of the buildings where they shot because it had such an impact and like just the feeling in that particular area. The crew had to make deals with the local gangs and give them parts as extras in the film to help try to keep the peace on set. They kind of preempted any sort of violence and theft that might happen. They were told to look out for snipers and various other things by the police. And on the final day of shooting, someone actually did take a shot at one of the production vans and shot out the back window. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. Fact number 3. Bernard Rose didn't even consider a happy ending. Many people have called the ending of Candyman bleak, and rightly so. It's not always that you end up killing everybody off, especially not in this type of way. We either have a murderous woman falling into major psychosis or a mystical killer taking vengeance. Rose didn't see a way that, other than Deus Ex Machina, to give this story a happy ending. He didn't want the hand of God just to make everything right. More than that, he once told Cinefantastique magazine, "I'm rather bored with happy endings. They reduce the sense of danger. It's like having the absolute feeling that however complicated or convoluted the problem any character may be going through in a movie, you feel so confident in most movies that at the end there's going to be Deus Ex Machina that's going to solve everything. There's almost no suspense to the story anymore." I would tend to agree. I don't want all my movies to end with a perfect bow on it. Sometimes I want sacrifice to mean something. Sometimes I want the heroes to fall short. And maybe that's not why most people go to the movie, because they want the escapism where good always pans out. But this is horror. We want truth in horror, and oftentimes horror does not end well. Fact number 4. Virginia Madsen was often hypnotized into a trance before filming. Bernard Rose wanted a very particular reaction from Madsen in certain scenes, especially when Candyman was present. Take the scene in the parking garage. She starts out and she's just normal, she's putting stuff in her car, and then whenever she actually hears the voice and asks who's there, like, you can see an entire change in her cadence, in her responses to the Candyman. Instead of being absolutely terrified and running, instead of, trying to confront him, she just, she gets kind of a softer, pallid voice, and, she's trying to resist, but she's drawn to him. And it makes for a very interesting dynamic here, because it could be the beginnings of her psychosis, or it could be part of the powers of the Candyman as he's asking her to be his victim, to make him more real. To induce this state, he used some amateur hypnosis techniques that would sedate her beforehand and let her stay in this particular state for a little while. Just an interesting little extra thing that they were able to do to make this more effective. I'm sure Virginia Madsen could have acted all this, but sometimes it's cool to pull out other tricks to get a certain response from an actress. Fact number 5. The producers were so worried that the film would be deemed racist, they had the director meet with the NAACP. To the producers, it was problematic that a white woman would be hunted by a black man. They worried that audiences would misconstrue this as old school racism, some of the old stereotypes. In his meetings with the NAACP, Bernard Rose and the members of that committee were able to determine that it was just in good fun. Moreover, they said that it would be more disturbing if a black man couldn't be a character like Hannibal Lecter or Freddy Krueger or some other such villain. That putting those sorts of boundaries up is actually more problematic and racist than allowing it to happen. They actually said it would be more perverse to not have a ghost story like this featuring a black man than to allow just white people to fill those roles. Candyman is a brutal movie, one that explores the idea that belief in something can actually make it real. It delves into the psychological, the mystical, and a stark reality faced by many in the projects of Chicago. It has moments that feel like a classic slasher, but this movie has so much more heart than that, and also breaks a lot of those tropes. The women of this movie aren't ditzy blondes looking for dick. They are well-educated women looking at the reality of life for the impoverished. They're trying to come up with solutions. They're trying to show what it's actually like for the people in these projects. And they're also trying to expose a killer who's using an urban myth to get away with murder. It's a movie that's so wrought with tension, with ambiguity, and it really transcends a lot of horror, especially that early 90s horror. We never really know if Helen is the killer or not. We don't know if her fugue states lead her to kill her friends and therapists and so on. We just know that the killings happened and it could be Tony Todd or it could be her, and that whatever happened, real or fiction, that was her undoing. I can't express how good Tony Todd was in this. Virginia Madsen's great as well, but Tony Todd just has this presence. He's got the voice, he's 6'5", he's a giant, and there's genuine menace when he's on the screen. Even whenever he was in Final Destination and all of those, he has a way about him that is just powerful and creepy, and to see him in this where he's so prominently featured just made a great performance. I remember watching this as a kid and being terrified to say Candyman, as irrational as I knew it was, because I was afraid that he was going to show up. Please, if you haven't seen this movie, go find it. It was on Netflix before. I'm not sure if it still is, but it's absolutely worth your time. It's not very long, and it really does deserve your time despite being, I believe, about 25 years old now. And if you have seen it, tell me what you think in the comments. Was it real? Was it just in her imagination? Keep in mind, I also haven't seen the sequels, and I'm kind of refusing to. I've heard that they kind of take away the mystique of this movie, so I kind of want it to stand alone. If you have seen the sequels, tell me about those as well, but once again, I'm probably not going to watch those. Thank you very much for watching this. Thank you for always checking out our 5 Facts videos, and for hitting that subscribe and like button on YouTube. We have a lot of really cool content on here. We're also live on Mixer 4 or 5 times a week, so be sure to check us out at mixer.com/humanechoes if you like live streaming and games. Otherwise, I hope you guys have an excellent week, and we will be back soon.